Hey guys, Tyrauku here, back with another raid video, and today we're going to do a champion spotlight on Oboro, obviously because she was part of the thumbnail and the title, so what a surprise, right? But this champion I actually built up a few weeks ago. Basically my idea was that I wanted to pick champions from the Shadowkin faction, a full team of 5, build them up and take them through Dragon in the idea that I could kind of build a similar team for like the actual Shadowkin faction when it comes out, the Faction Wars. But I ended up looking for a champion who did an AoE decreased defense in their faction, and Oboro is the one who I found, who I actually had. But looking at her skills, you find out this champion only does AoE decreased defense if an enemy has 4 or more debuffs to one that's being targeted, okay? So right off the bat, this is a very conditional skill, okay? Now, I want to make this video, this champion spotlight, I want to make my opinions really up front, like in the beginning, and then we'll jump into the other stuff later on. But I hopefully want to give you the information you need to make your decision on whether or not you want to 6-star her before you get 10 minutes into the video. However, that doesn't mean you shouldn't watch the whole video, because I do get ad revenue from that. So feel free to watch it all. Definitely appreciate it. If not, go ahead and drop a sub to the channel. It's very much appreciated, guys. But talking about this champion, honestly, she hits very hard, okay? Her A1, if the enemy does have 4 or more debuffs on them, the AoE ability she does some pretty good damage. Her A2, single target, also does some good damage. Her A2 does require some accuracy. Basically, it's worded kind of weird. It has the second hit up top and the first hit at the bottom, but the first hit has a 75% chance of stealing all buffs from the enemy. So basically, let's imagine the enemy is running an immunity set. Okay, so you're going to have a 75% chance, 100% when fully booked, of stealing the block debuffs from the enemy. And then from her second hit, you're going to have a 75% chance, 100% when fully booked, of applying all the debuffs from this champion to that target. Okay, so this is obviously a very good ability. However, it comes down to the question, do you want to build her for damage strictly, or do you want to build her to do this ability and land those debuffs and strip the enemy? Because if she doesn't strip the enemy, she's not going to apply no debuffs, assuming they have block debuffs, right? So you really need to prioritize the accuracy, making sure you land this if you're going to go down that route. Now, me personally, I built her more specifically towards the damage route and the damage side of things. You can see here I prioritized attack, speed, crit rate 70%, because her A3, she gets increased crit rate from it anyways, and then crit damage. For her accuracy, I got 153. Now, I think most content you could get away with 200. If you want to go ahead and push her up to 200, that's probably all you would need. I don't think you're going to use her too much in the arena, because single target champions just don't tend to do very well. Now, I know some of you guys may be watching saying, oh, well, Gala, Faceless, they're all amazing. They are, but both of those champions have specific niche uses in the arena that make them that much better. So Gala has, basically she gets extra turns, Faceless does a ton of damage, ignores a bunch of stuff. So both of those have different situations. Oboro doesn't have anything like that. Her benefit, and in my opinion, she does do very well in specific situations. Okay, so I would look at her less as like a nuke champion, a champion who's going to kill a bunch of enemies. I would look at her more of a champion who, if you're having a specific problem with a specific enemy in a certain area, she comes in and basically just gets rid of them. Okay, basically like an assassin, like a true Shadowkin warrior. All right, but outside of that, she doesn't do a ton, okay? Her A3 hits very hard, gives her increased crit rate, increased crit damage, places a perfect veil, which obviously synergizes perfectly if it's critical. So you need to make sure she has at least 70% crit rate. None of that 69% stuff. The meme is funny, but we can't do 69, okay? We can't do 69%. Go for 70% at least. Over, it's perfectly fine. Just don't go under that, okay? Now, this ability, her passive, places Revival and Death on this champion whenever she receives a veil or perfect veil. Now, this works with Duchess, with Rectordrath, whoever you're using to veil her, or she'll just veil herself, which is what I'm doing with her, and this is how I think she works pretty good. Now, I did use her. I legit use her, not like my Helior usage where I like tried to force him in all content because I spent too much money on him and I kind of regretted it. He does work in Nether Spider and he works in a few other areas kind of, but she actually legit made sense. What I did with her is I put her in Destroy set. I took her into Scarab Floor 100, I think, and I used her to kill the War Chiefs. I think it was War Chiefs, the ones who reflect damage in the waves, because what would happen is I would use an AoE nuker and they would get just destroyed by his reflect damage. So what Oboro does is she does that A3 ability, places a perfect veil on herself, then applies this Revival and Death for 3 turns. So she has a few turns to keep hitting those War Chiefs, and then I know, hey, she's going to do enough damage to kill herself. Once she kills herself, she's going to revive. I don't have to worry about bringing a res champion to pick her back up because she'll just bring herself back up. Throw a Blood Shield accessory on her, and it's good to go. She gets to the Scarab King, have her in a Destroy set, does pretty good damage from her single target abilities as it is, so she's slowly working down the Scarab King's HP. Another good use case, I think, for her would be if you're going through the Doom Tower and you're struggling like on maybe the Siphi waves, okay? And your AoE damage dealer isn't quite doing enough damage to get through those Siphis or get through whatever specific enemy it is, you could bring Oboro in. I mean, you could also bring champions like Gala or Faceless and other champions like that, other good single target damage dealers, and do just as good. But Oboro definitely fills that role very well of eliminating one enemy who's giving you a hard time or being problematic to your team. Now, outside of that, I think for most accounts, maybe like for a progressional champ, I don't know if Oboro is the best option to take to 6-star, okay? Now, here are my masteries. I already went over what my stat priorities was for her. I went over the skills. When it comes to booking this champion, well, let's first talk about my masteries. I have Helm Smasher tucked away behind me. Unfortunately, scuffed stream. Okay, there we go. There it is right there. I was going to say scuffed positioning of the webcam, but hey, now you can see it. So we have Helm Smasher and Kill Streak right there. I think this mastery setup goes pretty good. The Life Drinker gives her some extra sustainability. She has pretty low base stats as far as survivability. She's attack-based champion. That's kind of to be expected, right? So Life Drinker plus Retribution work out very well. She takes 50% or takes 25% or more of her max HP and damage, which is very likely, assuming people are not just hitting you with like wet noodles. So if they hit you, you're probably going to take a pretty good chunk of your HP, and she has a good chance of counterattacking. Life Drinker is going to heal her up quite a bit. Now you could run Helm Smasher or War Master or even Flawless Execution. Just depends on what area of the game you're focused on. If you're going to be using her like do good damage against bosses, maybe you go War Master. It's going to do more damage overall. But if you don't have very much crit damage, maybe take Flawless Execution. But if you have the crit damage levels that I have right now, I think it's more than acceptable to use Helm Smasher, and I think it's the best setup for her. Now, her speed, I would honestly wouldn't mind her to be even faster than what she is, because you really want her to cycle through stuff, because being a single target champion, you want her going as frequently as possible. Speaking of all this, going frequently and stuff, the books for her, specifically on her A3, are very, very valuable, okay? So this takes 6 books. I think she takes a total of 15 books. So it's definitely a pretty hefty sum of books. She's not like super low, and this ability definitely needs to be booked, okay? Honestly, I think if this ability is not booked, her kit just seems very clunky and weird, because if this isn't booked, then you don't have that increased crit rate up all the time. You need more of a reason to run the lasting gifts to get that increased crit rate to be extended. And in general, it just feels like she's going to go a lot slower. So you definitely want to try to get this booked if you can. Books land here, great. Books landing here, pretty important too. Her A2 doesn't hit massively hard. So if you can get all the books to land here, you may just be able to stop there if you're trying to be conservative with your books. They're A1. I mean, if you get a little bit of extra damage, perfect. If not, not a big deal. If you're not going to worry about her placing the decreased defense, not a big deal either, okay? This decreased defense on one champion is not a massive make or break. Now, granted, if you attack all enemies, then you have a chance of placing decreased defense on all enemies. That's pretty good. So it just depends on whether or not you want to build her with accuracy. You can see mine. I didn't build her with accuracy. I just went the route of doing good damage, pretty fast, and good crit damage. I have Cruel Gear on her. I don't have Savage. Obviously, if you had Savage, she would be doing a lot more damage, but I'm not going to use her as an arena nuker. Honestly, I don't think that makes a whole lot of sense to go ahead and put her in the arena, because typically in the arena, single target nuke champions don't do that well, okay? They're very slow. They just don't, there's not really a place for them in the current arena meta. Now, I'll go ahead and show you guys what she can do. We'll go ahead and use her A3 ability in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and skip this because I need Duke to apply decreased defense to everybody. So you see there, was it 32,000 damage with the A1? So we're going to go ahead and apply decreased defense. We got decreased defense to him, luckily. I don't know what I did with Duke. Apparently, I don't know how to use his skills correctly. But we'll go ahead and hit this guy and see what her A3 ability does do to him. So like I said, he's probably just gonna disappear, okay? Watch this. So Tyrell, defense-based champion, pretty tanky as it is. It's gonna do a lot more damage had we attacked Horden or this crossbowman dude. But tanky champion as it is, and she hits him for, boom, 163,000 damage, okay? That's a pretty significant hit right there. Now we cycle back through our stuff. once we get back to this champion. So she's in Veil right now. This is really good. So with her masteries, you'll notice I went down the defense tree and I went the reduces her damage taken by AoE abilities, okay? So AoE abilities are what she's really going to struggle against because she's invisible, basically like John Cena right now. You can't see her. So no single target enemy is going to attack her. They're going to attack everybody else. But if a champion has an AoE ability, she's going to get included in that, okay? So if she gets included in that, you want to mitigate as much of that damage as possible. Like I said earlier, she's not super tanky. So well, she does have Revival and Death, which is nice, but she's not super tanky. So you want to try to keep her alive as much as possible, right? I mean, that's not really a top tier strategy there. But let's go ahead and see what her A1 hits for. AoE, 43,000, 33,000. So yeah, I mean, it's doing good damage. Don't get me wrong. The A1 does very good damage AoE, especially for a champion who brings a very hard-hitting single target ability on her A3. And we'll check out what her A2 looks like. 35,000. I mean, it's not significant, okay? Compared to what her other abilities was, that wasn't significant, right? Now, we'll try it again on the next wave just to make sure that the examples were pretty consistent. But the A1 ability is so conditional that I think it makes it hard to justify or consider that being an AoE ability, just because you have to have 4 debuffs, and it's kind of difficult to get consistent 4 debuffs applied to the enemies, right? I mean, if you have Taurus, if you have Bad L, it's pretty easy, but I understand most people don't have those champions, so your typical decreased defense, decreased attack champions, throwing decreased speed, like collecting 4 debuffs, it only has to be on one champion. You can pick who you're targeting, but she doesn't, her AI is kind of weird. Her AI won't target somebody who has 4 debuffs just to get that AoE to proc. At least that's what I've noticed with her. I've seen her attack enemies with 3 debuffs instead for whatever reason. And you can't change that with the AI presets, unfortunately. Go ahead and see what I want to see what her A2 hits for, but we'll go ahead and do this again. A1, once again, 26,000, 82,000 over there. So pretty good against the champions who don't have super high defense. Tyrell has higher defense. He's going to be a little bit more tanky, of course, but still pretty good damage. I want to see what her A2 hits for when she has increased crit rate, increased crit damage. I want increased attack as well because, you know, attack-based champion, we want all the biggest hitting abilities. So we have everything going on now. We'll attack Apothecary, probably make him disappear, okay? Let's see how much damage it does. A2 going off now. 79,000, okay? Definitely a pretty respectable number. She's going to be doing quite a bit of damage. Well, one-shotting essentially most champions in these medium area dungeons, so definitely cleaning up very well. But like I said, kind of going back to the whole single target thing, she's a very, like, I guess overall selfish champion who has the potential to be a very good team player if you can get her A1 to activate. She is good for specific niche situations where you need to get rid of one specific enemy. For me, in the Scarab King, she worked out very good. Revival and Death makes her kit kind of all tie together. If you run her with a Duchess or Rector Drath, something like that, she's going to get even more benefit of having that constant Revival and Death. But, I mean, if you run her with Duchess or Rector, you already have a res champion with those two, right? So not as much benefit. If you do run her with War Master, she's going to do even more damage to the dragon here, so he'll go down a little bit quicker. We'll see how much damage she does at the end of this. It's going to be pretty comparable, I assume, to Bad L. Obviously, the more AoE abilities you get off with her on her A1, the more overall damage is going to be. So we'll go ahead and see what that is. Definitely a champion who I don't personally recommend. I don't personally think she's going to be super valuable for most players if you're going through just progressional content. I think typically champions who bring more team synergies, so like ally buffs, more debuffs, AoE attacks where you could possibly fit in a stun set, I think those champions are going to do better most of the time for most players. But if you're somebody who's taken Oboro to 60, and you're in that kind of progressional stage, you're still working on stage 20 of dungeons, and you found a legit use for her, let me know down below, because I'd be very interested in knowing if she'd be much better option than an AoE champion. I would assume that most players who have the champions to apply 4 debuffs to the enemy pretty consistently and pretty easily probably have some pretty good AoE options of probably even Void Affinity champions who'd be very good, like Skull Crown. Now, Oboro does bring the ally attack in all dungeons. This is a good ability if you're trying to speedrun stuff, especially like with Royal Guard, things like that. But I feel like most of the time you're looking for more like defense, which this is not going to work because it's in faction crypts, but you're looking for like defense, HP, speed, things more like survivable, help you get through your abilities a little bit quicker. Attack is great if you're working through the waves pretty quickly, but I found that when I'm working on accounts and doing takeovers for people who are lower in the game, that I'm looking for more of those survivable auras. But hey, this is definitely a very good aura as far as the percentage that it boosts, especially compared to a lot of other champions. So the dragon, kind of got an idea how she does there. Let's go ahead and jump into the arena and kind of get an idea of what she does here. So I'm gonna go ahead and refresh that. This is at level 40. What the heck? Oh, the bot's gone. Okay, this is a good team right here to go against. We'll go ahead and put Sify in there just to make sure I don't get frozen out. This would be a pretty good example of like a team who's pretty tanky, I would say. I mean, we have Mountain King and Tormund, both pretty tanky champions, right? So we'll decrease defense on everybody. And this is a situation where you're really never gonna get this A1 ability to become an AoE attack, right? Because getting 4 debuffs on the enemy in arena is very difficult. Now, maybe if you had Rio, Bone Spear, you could apply a bunch of debuffs with her, get an AoE attack with Oboro, so that synergies would work, but you have to build a team specifically around expecting to get this A1 ability to become AoE. It's not as easy as, hey, let's just run Madame Sarah, strip all their buffs, do 2 debuffs, won't work the same. However, I imagine she's going to one-shot this Duchess. Let's go ahead and see how much damage she hits for. 170,000, I bet. Oh, no, 117,000, okay? Plenty of damage. More than enough damage to one-shot most Duchesses. Not all Duchesses, but majority of them. Like, talking back about earlier about not being the most survivable champion in the world, perfect example right there of which, granted, that Mountain King hit like an absolute truck. So take it with a grain of salt, right? Luckily, we do have the increased crit rate. Dang, 45,000 with A1. So she don't like being hit very much. That counterattack, beautiful. Ton of damage from that, okay? Now, A2 ability, let's go ahead and hit the Madame Sarah with this. 56,000. So yeah, she's going to work through enemies. If you don't have a very good nuke arena damage dealer, she can definitely clean up the arena for you. I just think in most situations, you're probably going to be better off with a champion like a Skull Crown, a champion, maybe even your starter champion, to nuke the enemies in AoE. It's going to be a little bit quicker, most situations I would assume, but she's not a bad champion. I do think when Shadowkin Faction Wars come out, she'll probably find a role there more, especially if you have a pretty limited selection of Shadowkin champions, right? Like if I only had 2 or 3 epics in the Shadowkin faction, then yeah, I'd be much more likely to use Oboro. I don't think with my current lineup, especially with Yoshi and Ninja, I don't think I'm going to be using Oboro in that situation. But had I had a lesser selection of Shadowkin, I definitely think Oboro could fit. She does good damage. She singles out enemies, knocks them out pretty good. It's just I think her kit would be better, especially if that A1 was always an AoE ability. It'd be very good in that situation. Books, overall, I say it's pretty required for her, definitely for her A3 ability just to make it work. But other than that, guys, thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope it gave you a little bit of insight on my opinions on Oboro. Hopefully it helps you in deciding whether or not you should take her to 6-star. Let me know if you like these kind of champion spotlight videos, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Catch you in the next video.